Welcome to the Enchanted Earth podcast, where you will hear stories of nature with the power to transform our lives. These sacred stories are begging to be shared now. So listen in as my guest today shares one of their own. Welcome, everybody. And today I have with me Carmel Ecker. And let me tell you a little bit about Carmel. She is a life coach, a marketing and communications consultant, a writer, and a mountain biker. And somehow she weaves mountain biking into all that she does. And I'm really excited to learn more about Carmel with you today. So, welcome, Carmel, to the Enchanted Earth podcast.
Thank you so much. I'm so super excited to be here.
Did I get your bio right?
You 100% did. Yeah, I don't know how this all fits together, but it somehow does. I think I was telling you earlier, I do things the way you're not supposed to do things. And I've had this sense of like, oh, you just have to do things the hard way, don't you?
Well, I love that. I'm kind of a jack of all trades, master of, I shouldn't say none, but few of those I'm a master at. But I personally love that. I love having my hands in a lot of different things. It's a certain personality, I think, that we probably share that trait of loving to just have lots of things going at the same time.
Yes. Yeah. Yeah. And I feel like for so long I tried to fit myself in that one narrow space. Well, this is what I do. And it just didn't work. It didn't align. It was hard. And so I actually at a certain point opened myself up and I said, you know what? If something comes up and it seems like a good opportunity and it's aligned with my values and I'm excited by it, I'm just going to say yes. And it's really opened a door to so many good things.
I feel like gone are there days that you have a particular occupation. I think to really live authentically, I feel like we really need to just tap into whatever sparks us and somehow weave it together and that's okay. And I think what our other passions are, like yours was mountain biking, what does that have to do with life coaching? But you're bringing that passion and what really lights you up into everything you do. And that makes it just all the more yummy for others to connect with.
It really does. Yeah. And biking, mountain biking is actually what I'm known for more than probably anything else. And it very much is infused into everything I do. And some people will be only listening to this so they can't see the video, but I have a fleet of bikes behind me. You can never have too many.
I love that. It's like me with tarot decks or astrology books. I mean, you just can't have enough.
Yeah. One of the things that I love about cycling on the road or mountain biking, which is the majority of what I do, is it gets me out in nature. It gets me out on the trails. It's my guaranteed forest fix.
Well, I'm so glad you kind of like, okay, so you brought that into the relevance of why you're on here today because we were introduced by Nicole Cronin, I believe.
Mhm.
She's a forest bathing guide. So you're an outdoor enthusiast too. And I was just kind of wondering, you kind of open my eyes to kind of sports and considering outdoor sports enthusiasts for this podcast, you're the first one that, I mean, that's talking about it. I mean, maybe others have that kind of hidden, but I would love to understand kind of how you experience nature when you're biking versus, say, just taking a walk or hiking.
Yeah. Well, I mean, one obvious difference is that I'm moving a lot faster. But aside from that, it's my meditation. It is, I cannot, like when I'm walking in the forest, I can be thinking about 50 different things because, I'm moving really slowly and, I'm probably not going to trip or crash into something or whatever have you. When I'm on the bike and you're moving fast and you're going over roots and rocks, and maybe there's a drop or maybe there's a steep climb to go up, there really isn't space to think about all of the other clutter that's going on in your life. You're so in the moment. You're so focused on what's next in the trail. Yeah, and even the environment. Like, I love where we are. We have a lot of crows, and they're like my black jacket cheering squad. Oh, that's how I see them, because I hear them constantly as I'm riding through, and it just brings me so much joy to be in this space where I'm listening to nature and also moving through it in a really I've been mountain biking for 27 years now, so I move through it in a relatively fluid way, which is a little different than it was when I first was learning to ride. And you're a little awkward, like a baby, like a fawn or something that's like learning how to use its legs. So, yeah.
Well, have you ever thought about, like, what the crows are thinking, like, how they're interacting with you and what they're thinking about you?
You know what? I assume that they don't even notice that I'm there. So that's a really interesting question because they're way up high in the trees. They're calling to one another, but you're right. They could be calling to one another. Hey, there's another crazy lady on a bike coming down.
Well,
Watch yourself.
I think about, the birds, one of their, I guess, their sounds is alarm when there's some kind of predator that they're on watch. So I wonder if they're reacting, in a surprise, like, oh, hey, there's something here, and everyone watch, and everyone's like communicating.
Yeah. Yeah, it could be. And they have really different sounds. Like, I mean, I'm not an expert on different animal calls, bird calls, whatever, but it is so fascinating to me the variety of sounds that crows specifically make. You'll just notice and I wish I could do bird calls so I could share them. Quack, quack. I mean, that's the one everybody knows, but they have some really cool sounds. They're fascinating birds.
Yeah, they're very social creatures that, their family is so important, and extended family, like their community. Yeah, they're really incredible. And so, I mean, for you and anybody who's watching or listening, I have the Merlin ID app, which is free from Cornell University. And it's fabulous. And you would download your region. So it would be connecting you with birds that are in your area. And it's just amazing. You can actually just push record the sound of the birds in the area, and it will show you what birds are calling, what are in the area, and it lights up when they make that sound. So
I don't know about this.
Merlin, like the magician, Merlin, I turn everybody on to it. It's just incredible.
That's so cool.
Incredible.
Yeah.
So yeah, so you're moving through the landscape. It's whizzing by you. So can you kind of share, like, what that is in general? Like, not, you don't have to get into a specific story yet, but what is that like in general? Because I certainly am not a mountain biker. I'm barely a biker on a street. And I cannot imagine that experience, what you're describing of, drops and rocks and roots.
Well, you know what? It's in my mind, it's actually safer than biking on the road because probably I'd say more cyclists are seriously injured or killed riding down the road
Wow.
than there are in the forest. So I actually feel really at peace when I'm mountain biking. I'm on the trail. It's really calm, and usually you don't have a lot of other humans in the forest. So it's kind of just me and nature. And I really don't have anything else to think about except what trail am I on and what's up ahead and ooh, can I take a different line that I did last time? Because we think of if you don't mountain bike, you think of oh, there's a trail and there's only one way to go. But if there's a rock feature or something, there's actually multiple lines that you can take going up and going down. So it's interesting to go out and be, can I ride this differently than I have before? Or if I've never ridden it, what is the line? Can I take a few moments and just really focus on this? So it's this really interesting experience of being in nature and being hyper aware that I'm in nature, yet very, very focused on the activity that I am participating in within that nature. I hope that makes sense.
Yes, yes. And so there's 2 things. First, are you in Colorado?
I am not. I'm in southern British Columbia.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay, thank you. For some reason, I was thinking that Colorado. So Southern British Columbia,
Mhm.
beautiful area. I've been a few times, just absolutely gorgeous. And the other thing I just wanted to respond to is you know, it's interesting because when we want to kind of go inside, it all depends on our personality, what works for us, right? So you get a lot of people that go, I could never just sit and meditate. Oh my God, my mind is going, like you're saying. And it's funny because then there's some people I say, okay, we'll do a moving meditation, which could be like at a labyrinth or, taking a walk into nature. But then there's people like you that are like, that's not good enough. Like I have to be really insanely, like, threatening my life to be of course.
I I would say that most of the riding I do is not like in fact, probably I'd say all of the riding I do is non-life threatening.
I'm glad you clarified that. No, yeah,
Yeah.
no, in my mind, what you're thinking is just easy peasy is almost life threatening to me. So,
Fair enough. Fair enough. If you don't have the skills
right.
in this environment, you really can hurt yourself.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
So I'm kind of curious. You've been mountain biking for 27 years, and a lot of people that I talk to on this podcast have a variety of different backgrounds as a child and their connection to nature. Can you tell me, did you grow up in this area of British Columbia?
Yes, but a little bit from so I'm actually on the southern tip of Vancouver Island in Victoria, and I grew up about 300 miles away east in a tiny town called Calamia. And it's a very agricultural area. The town itself is very small, and we're best known for our fruit stands. But I grew up on the river. So my parents had 2 acres and it was right on the not the house, but the property itself was right on the river. So, we would get home from school and we'd go swimming or we could just kind of go and hang out in a very natural environment pretty much any time.
Wow.
Yeah, and I remember going up when we were kids, my parents, we routinely, like most weekends in the summer, we would go up to a place called Ashenola, which is just up the road into the mountains. And we would have a campsite that there's nobody else there. That my idea of camping is very different from a lot of people's idea of camping because I moved to Victoria and I remember seeing a campsite here for the first time and going, I don't know what you people are doing, but it is not camping. Because people are stacked right side by side, right? The campsites are very close. Whereas when I grew up, we went out there and you got the campsites were like 500 meters or a kilometer apart.
Wow.
So, we had our own little oasis and we were kind of free range kids once our parents knew that we weren't going to like drown ourselves in the river. We were big enough to know dangers and take care of ourselves. But yeah, we would go camping and they just kind of like, okay, go play. And so we'd head down to the water and we'd walk through the forest. It's a childhood that I know not a lot of people will necessarily share that experience.
Yes. And I mean, you know, I'm 60, so you're 45. I saw on your blog post. And, just thinking about like your generation was definitely getting to a point where, especially around here, much less of a nature experience as a child.
Mhm.
Yeah. So that's wonderful. And so did you ever have like a very interesting experience in nature, perhaps alone?
That's an interesting question. I don't know if there is a specific experience, but now as I'm talking, I remember, so I'm divorced now, but when I got married and had my honeymoon, we went down to California and San Francisco, and we rented a car and we drove to, oh gosh, the John Muir Forest,
Your woods.
the Muir Woods. Partly because when I was in university, I had taken an environmental studies course and I had fallen in love with John Muir's writings about nature. Just like he was a scientist, but also a poet. So the way that he wrote, and I was like, I have to go to this place. I just admired this man's perspective on nature so much. I have to go to this place. And I just, for the first time ever in my life, I felt compelled to hug a tree. And in looking at it, I'm like, "What?" It's kind of ridiculous and maybe a little performative. I don't know, but I just really felt the need to hug this tree, and I was just so content and so happy. And my husband at the time actually took a picture of me, and it's a really interesting photo because the light is shining on I'm lit up by the light that was shining at that moment. And my eyes are closed and I can look so content and at peace. And so I get like, that's a moment, I was so happy to be there. I'd traveled, I don't know, few thousand miles to be in this place and kind of communing with nature. And it was just a time it was really important for me to go to that place and see, a nature that was a little bit different than what I grew up in, right? We don't have redwoods here.
Okay.
So, yeah, hugging a tree in the John Muir Woods.
It's interesting how we think, you know, it's not just interesting, it's sad how we think, "Oh, hugging a tree is kind of weird or silly," or that should be our natural response. It's family, right? It's like going up to a family member and giving them a hug. That's how I feel, we have to go back to. I think we were there, but we have to go back to that. So that tree was, that tree was calling you to like, come over here, get closer.
Yeah,
Yeah, there was definitely a connection.
yeah, yeah. And I don't know why I needed to do it. I didn't really care why.
Well, it was because the tree was saying, "Come on, come here, come here. You're open." Not it, that's another thing. When I was at Muir Woods, it was packed.
It is busy.
It was in June, tourist season.
Mhm,
There were crowds of people
mhm.
and people that were just chit-chatting as they were walking through. And as soon as we could veer off a path, because everyone was going on the main path, we veered off and we were alone. And it was so I guess what I'm saying is the trees there are craving for our attention.
Mm.
And when we enter this cathedral with an open heart, an open mind, that is when the magic can happen. It's like, come here, come here. Let's have this intimate connection. Let's have a real connection because so many people will just go, "Oh, how cool," and just walk on by.
Yes. Yeah, absolutely. And I think there is something to be said for taking time to just sit and be and notice and just hear the sounds of the forest, to, feel the dirt in your hands, to walk and feel like how the ground I mean, when we walk on pavement, it's just solid, right? Like there's no give. And in the forest, you can actually feel the earth moving underneath, whether you're wearing shoes or not.
Yeah.
You feel it. It's not, it can be spongy, or it can be more compact, or it has different qualities to it depending on the terrain that you're on. Yeah, just taking the time to notice. And that's one thing that I do get when I mountain bike as well. Like I might be moving, but I'm not moving the whole time. I'll stop and take breaks, especially if I'm with someone else, right? It's also a very social activity for me, a time to be with friends in nature.
So, just a question, as you're riding and you're really focused on the trail, I mean, what's coming up? What do I need to go around? What do I need to be prepared for? Are you able to see what's around you? Is it like a peripheral experience?
It is a really like it's peripherally, yes, I'm definitely seeing what's coming up as I'm moving. I'm not moving so fast that I can't notice what's around me. And I'm definitely hyper aware of the different noises in the environment. Like I remember being out there when it was in the evening, early evening, and I was by myself and I heard this giant, I was riding by kind of a not really a but like kind of a swampy area, and I heard a big splash and there was no one around. And I was like, I'm just gonna head for the road now. It just freaked me right out. I was like, I don't know what made that splash, and I don't want to know what made that splash. I've had a good ride. I'm heading home now. So, like I'm always hyper because we do have bears and cougars around here, and I do need to be hyper aware of my own safety, not just from the terrain, but also from any animals that are around. And the bears, we mostly have black bears here, but one area where I ride, there's a well-known mom and bear cub, and I actually ran into them last year. I was coming in on a trail and I saw them about, I don't know, 50 meters in front of me. And I stopped and I just watched them. I was like, and they're watching me. I think they were trying to figure out what I was going to do as much as I was trying to figure out what they were going to do. And I slowly backed my bike up. And when I sort of felt like, okay, they're just gonna carry on, I turned around and I headed back down the trail I came in on. And I was like, I've never ridden so fast in my whole life, I don't think. Yeah, that was another interesting experience. And I posted on Facebook, and I had a friend who posted, oh, she's like, I always miss them. And I'm thinking, I I think that's actually a really good thing. I did not need to greet two bears on the trail. Not that I necessarily thought that anything was going to happen, but there's always that risk. You don't know. So yeah, I was like, no, thanks. I'm good. I don't need to experience that again.
Yeah. Yeah. Oh, well. So, do you have a story that you'd like to share about a profound or moving experience in nature?
Hmm. I think I think that what's most profound for me, specifically when it comes to mountain biking in nature, is where I can go. I can go so much further on a bike than I can on foot. And it's also a very different experience than being on foot. So I can get further in and just be alone in nature for a while. And I don't know if that's, this the story that you're looking for, the profound, but it feels wonderful every single time. Like it's never like, "Oh, I've been here before and so what?" Like take it for granted. It always feels like, "Oh, what a gift that this is a 10-minute bike ride from my house." I can literally roll out my door and in 10 minutes in one direction and 10 minutes in another direction, be at two different trail networks. And so I guess it's just like, yeah, what a gift it is that I can be in this space, that it's so accessible, because I know there are plenty of people in this world for whom that kind of environment is not accessible. And that, is pretty darn pristine. It's a beautiful place to be.
Yeah. Yeah.
And when I say mountain biking is my meditation, I really mean it. It is my meditation. So I'm not bogged down by all of the, negative thoughts, wondering how da 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 da. And I'll find often that as I'm riding, ideas just come through. And I'll sometimes have to actually stop and make a note in my phone frantically, because I'm like, this will be gone in about 30 seconds because my I'm moving through the world, and I'm leaving behind, what I, that second ago, I've left that behind. I'm just moving. So I will sometimes stop. But yeah, I sometimes have these aha moments while I'm mountain biking. And I'm like, oh, that's why that happened. Or this is how I can shift my perspective on that thing that was really bugging me. And it's not like I'm focusing on them. It's like my brain's just working in the background as I'm out, separated from all of the noise. You're like, "Oh, now I get it." Or, "Oh, it's so clear to me now. This is what I need to do." It's kind of a similar experience.
Right, right. I kind of visualize that there's like this column of energy in our bodies, like the kundalini, the spinal column
Mhm.
basically that goes to the chakras, and that it's phew, it's a flurry of activity, but when we still ourselves in some way, our
Mm.
inner world, there's just like enough gap that information can come through. And when we're in nature,
Mhm.
that gap is, I feel is usually for me a little bit longer and maybe clearer, like
Mm.
this direct connection to this energy that is, basically resonating with our bodies. When we're indoors, I do feng shui and I've done a lot of different modalities connected with our inside spaces. And, it's the energy of these spaces can be good. We can make it better, but there's nothing like being out in beautiful nature.
Yeah, it's almost like the space that's there is reflected in ourselves. Like, it gives us permission to make space in our inner world just by being, because I mean, a house is, four walls. It's a very defined beginning and end, right? Whereas out in nature, it's not defined. Like, there's a lot of space. And so if you can allow your inner world to reflect that that space that you're moving through, that isn't defined,
Right.
I think I think that's why we often feel so free when we're outside whether it's in the forest or like the red rocks of like Moab, for example. It's a way to kind of give ourselves permission, I think.
Yeah, it is a wonderful metaphor that
Mm,
that you just kind of put into focus for me. I mean, yeah, we're bounded in our indoor spaces and then we're unbounded. There's no boundaries. We can like dissolve into all that's around us if we let go. And
if we let go, and I think that's a really important consideration, let's say, if we let go. Because if you don't let go, and I see this in mountain biking too, right? Like one of the things that needs to happen to be, a successful mountain biker to really enjoy the ride is to allow for the bike to move underneath you, to be loose in your body enough to like move with the trail, maintain your body position so that you're stable. But that actually means moving around on your bike. It can be lateral movement, it can be forward backward movement, it can be up down movement. So your stability depends on you moving around to adjust terrain that you're on.
yeah, stability depends on your flexibility and
Yes.
resilience, right? Resilience.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah,
And
so you have to let go a little bit, right? You have to be a little loose and be adaptable to what the terrain is doing.
wow.
Yeah, I mean, surfing is often used as a metaphor, right? Ride the wave, right? And no wave is the same. It's going to be a little bit different. So you're going to be making micro adjustments to. Not that I'm a surfer, even though I live on an island. But I still get the metaphor, right? And I think that's something that nature
Okay.
provides us is this ever-changing landscape
Mm.
that that forces us to be adaptable. We can bring that adaptability within nature of like, oh, there's a rock now. You might ride over it, you might ride around it, who knows? We bring that lesson into our everyday life?
Oh, I hear the life coach in you.
No, that's just
It is so true. Like what you learn on the trail is really such a wonderful metaphor for the trail of our lives.
yeah.
So I'm just looking back at my notes and we were talking about like meditation and there's different people that like different levels of meditation from stay to walking to biking and your birthday is August 16th.
Yes.
Mine is August 20th. So
Oh,
happy
cool.
birthday, Leo.
Happy birthday, Leo.
So, in my mind, I'm like, oh, she's fire.
Yes.
Because us fire people have a hard time with just sitting still and just, being sedentary. I mean, and also the love of adventure and,
Mhm.
being curious and being a rebel. Oh my gosh, so much I can resonate with in your personality.
Yeah, I do. I am challenged to sit still. And it's always been that way. Like even if it's like and I love reading, but I struggle to sit and read a book.
All
I have
right.
to almost like force myself, get a cup of tea. I'm like, okay, I'm gonna sit here, I'm gonna enjoy my tea, and I'm gonna read my book. But it's why I'm actually starting listening to audiobooks more because I don't have to sit still, but
Right.
I can still read the book.
Yes. I understand.
Yeah, it's finding ways to work with your own natural ways of being, let's say. Mhm.
Wow. Wow. So, Carmel, as we wrap up today, do you have any other thoughts you would like to share about our experiences in nature?
Mm. Well, I think nature is a great healer. Like just simply, we're in a world where there are a lot of stressors. So there are a lot of things that can contribute to our stress. And being in nature is one of the ways we can counteract those forces. And I see this not just in myself, I see it in other people. I see it in my partner who, he's also a mountain biker. But, for him, it's the same experience going out in nature, being on his bike, like getting the blood flow moving in his body and leaving behind the stressors. He also has a business. So he has his own stressors that he manages. It's like a night and day, the person he is when he leaves versus the person he is when he gets back from a ride. It's really unbelievable. So you don't have to mountain bike to experience that. Obviously, you can walk, you can run, you can just go sit, forest bathe, but it's just there is something really calming about it. You're a little bit away from all of the noises of the world. Like there's a lot of noise in the world, and it's not calming noise like a babbling brook. It's cars and horns. It's manufactured noise. And so I just find that going out in nature and being in a quiet place that's still not actually quiet, like there's life. There's life there, but it's the sounds that it makes there are peaceful.
The sounds of life. And like we started, bird song,
Mm.
so important to our evolution. I learned from another one of the people I interviewed for my book, Gordon Hempton, who is an acoustic ecologist, that we have evolved with prioritizing birdsong to understand if the environment was a threat or was safe. Because by listening to the birds, we know, are there predators around? Are they happy and they're singing? Then we know there's food, there's water, there's everything we need to live.
Yeah. Nature has a lot to teach us if we're open to learning.
Absolutely. Yes. Thank you so much for coming on today, Carmel.
Well,
And
thank you for having me.
yes, yes. And I would love to hear any of you, if you would like to comment below. I would love to hear your experience and what resonated with you in this interview. And please like, share, subscribe. And wonderful. So, everyone, have a wonderful day.
Thank you for being a part of the Enchanted Earth podcast. Comment below, share, and most of all, please hit the subscribe button so that you'll hear when we publish another inspiring episode. You can visit us at luminous-spaces.com for more information on our online courses, retreats, and offerings. Thank you and have a magical day.